We are fancy this week, okay?
We are totally fancy this week. We're doing branding for our live. So yeah, I guess we can get into it unless we want to talk about what we did this weekend or anything like that, which I don't know if the people care about, but we can. I like your strawberry shortcake shirt, by the way.
Well, thank you.
It's
I love
really
Target.
cute.
Thanks. Target has the best like graphic t-shirts sometimes. So I got this like 2 years ago. And I loved it. I love strawberry shortcake.
It's a nice color on you.
Well, thank you. I see you got your Adam Schiff
I got
on.
my Adam
I
Schiff
forgot.
shirt. That's right.
I have an Adam Schiff shirt too, and I totally forgot about it. I would have worn it
Yeah,
if I remembered.
I think I have two or three. So yeah, so I have Adam Schiff shirts, and obviously wore it because he is going to be going head to head with the Republican in California after Super Tuesday, which was awesome. I went out and voted, and obviously voted for Adam Schiff. I put a TikTok up where I'm shirtless, and my boyfriend showed it back to me. He's like, "Whore."
That's what I would have said too. What I would
So
have said.
yeah, I mean he doesn't care, but he just thought it was funny.
Too funny. Yeah, no. I mean, we want to start with Super Tuesday. Or we want to start with
Yeah.
the reunion.
No, no, let's
Okay.
start with Super Tuesday and then we can, because that's going to be a shorter conversation.
Yeah, well, Super Tuesday was very interesting. It was everything that we expected and a little bit more. So it started, I was honestly that night, I was kind of like just really chilling and I was waiting patiently for California. Like that was the main thing that was my main event for the night. I mean, I
Yep.
knew Joe Biden was going to win every state. Like he was going to do him and Trump was obviously going to win. I was surprised that Nikki Haley won Vermont, I believe it was, or was it Maine? It was Vermont, right?
I don't remember. Let me
It's
take
one
a
of
quick
those
look.
states. It's one of those states that she won, one of those northeast states that no one expected her to win, and she ended up winning it, which was surprising. But I want to say it was Bernie State. It might be Maine though. Yeah, it's Vermont. Somebody said. So yeah,
Okay, there's a,
yeah, yeah. So she won Vermont, and I
I
did.
forgot you won DC too.
Yeah, she won DC. Well, she had won DC last weekend when we were
Yeah.
talking, and then
Uh-huh.
she ended up winning. She ended up winning Vermont on Tuesday, and I was like, okay, well, let's see what's gonna happen now. But of course, she had no chance of winning. She has no chance of winning. Period. So it all ended up being exactly what we thought. She was going to drop out, which was expected. Then, of course, Dean Phillips drops out. That was to be expected too. We thought he was going to hang on a little bit longer, but he finally came to his senses, realized where he was, and actually wrote a nice tweet about Joe Biden, which started off with him saying that Joe Biden came to his house, which was so Dean Phillips, like no one cared. But he is funny. And now he's like all Team Biden, yay, go Biden, when he was
I
like
know.
crap about him for the last like
Yeah, his tweet on Super Tuesday, it was like, well, he goes, I guess everyone the other candidates except for me or something like that. I forget what it was, but it was very emo. His tweet. I was just like, "Oh, brother, like can you go ahead and just please drop out already?"
Yeah, he's such an odd guy. But I'm glad that he dropped out. We are now in general election mode, which I'm grateful for. But of course, like I said, the main event for the night was our favorite race that we were waiting for, which was Adam Schiff versus everyone else.
Yeah,
That's what I
absolutely. And for me, it was I mean, I like Adam Schiff. Obviously, like I want him to win. I voted for him, but it wasn't just enough for him to win. I really wanted to see Katie Porter lose. That was
of course.
and man, did she lose? She lost, and then she lost her shit after that. So she lost the race, and then she goes on Twitter and she gives her concession speech, doesn't wish Schiff luck, doesn't really do the gracious bow. Yeah, she's talking about how it's rigged, and and that's why she lost. Meanwhile, she came in third place in the very community that she represents. It was like a Dean Phillips kind of embarrassment because Dean Phillips lost in his own district to Joe
He
Biden.
lost
Like,
the uncommitted.
yeah, he lost to uncommitted. So, like, super embarrassing. I mean, this whole time we've been saying that Katie Porter has been getting high off of those whiteboard markers because to think that I don't understand why she would go ahead and abandon abandon the seat that she flipped, even if it's a tight race, even if you think you're going to lose it. Like, why would you not stay in that seat? Why would you go head first into failure? That's the part I don't get. Why did she think she was going to be able to go to toe with Adam Schiff?
Well, because she's a privileged white woman, and so she thought that she could somehow beat him. She doesn't have the experience that Adam Schiff has, right? She's only been in the house what 60, well, five, well, she came in 20, she won in 2018, so she started running in this race last year. I mean, at that point, she really only had about 5 years of experience. And granted, she was in a fairly purple seat that she had flipped from red to purple, and she barely won in 2022. And so I don't know who like told her that she was special, but she clearly thought she was. And she thought
Hmm.
she had, some kind of skills that she doesn't have. We knew going into this that, when she announced, everyone was like, okay, why is she doing this? And then she made that weird announcement when there was in the middle of a storm. And,
Yep. State of
California.
emergency. It was
Yeah,
during like a state of
yeah,
emergency.
people were not happy with that. And then,
Yep.
Adam jumped in the race, and
And
it was like,
didn't she make the announcement if she preempted Dianne Feinstein's retirement announcement?
yeah, yeah, you know how I feel about that. So yeah, she
Yeah.
totally did. She jumped into the race. She didn't even tell Di-Fi that she was, going to jump in this race. And it stunned everyone. And people were like, what the F? And for good reason, right? I mean, it's kind of disrespectful. Dianne Feinstein hadn't even announced that she was retiring yet. She just said, I'm jumping in. So she technically, if Dianne Feinstein was on, like, was actually healthy, and was living and decided she wanted to run, Katie Porter basically said she was going to run against a legend,
Yep.
which was disrespectful. And so that kind of went on. Then Adam Schiff, he jumped. I guess he must have talked to, he jumped in like maybe like 2 months later, or maybe a month and a half later. And, he said he did speak to Dianne Feinstein. I think Barbara Lee said she spoke to Dianne Feinstein. So people kind of knew what the plan was. At that
Hmm.
point, Dianne Feinstein was I think that was when she first had got shingles. Like it was a kind of odd timing. But the fact that she just jumped in, and she just kind of did herself a disservice. She started on the wrong foot, and people have short memories, and sometimes long memories too, of things that people actually have done. And the whole thing that she did with Maxine Waters, and just some of her, weird like vibes that she gives off. Remember, there was the reports of how she treated her staff, the things about her husband and the potatoes, like.
And yeah, the potato salad. She threw a potato salad at her
She,
husband or
she
something
threw
like
like
that.
potatoes at him. I don't know. It was some weird
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, it was odd.
Yeah.
So like all that.
That whole campaign was weird. I didn't understand the campaign. I didn't understand the strategy. I mean, she was talking about, hey, if you want recipes to, these cookies and the spaghetti, and I'm like, and then they would have pictures, but the pictures were like nothing that I found appetizing. I'm just like, okay, that's really
It was a
disgusting.
lot.
I don't.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
she's a strange one. And of course, Adam Schiff for a long time, he just kind of ran his race. He was definitely just, he was as one of our friends would say, he was in cruise control. And he was for a really long time. He kind of just started stacking his paper and knew at some point it was going to be go time. And kudos to his team for that, because they
hmm.
they, they kind of sat back and watched, and then we had like that first debate, everything was kind of chill. Then we got to the second debate, and the second debate is when she went at him. I mean, she went at him hard. I think it was the second
Yeah.
or third debate that she went at him
And
hard.
unprovoked. And
And
unprovoked.
unprovoked. Right, exactly.
Unprovoked.
And right before that debate was when that Harley Ruda op-ed came out, where he kind of like destroyed her, where he said she was
Yep.
a liar and she was all these different things, and he was just attacking her from a personal level. And I
Yep.
thought that was interesting. And as we talked about last week, she only had one congressional. I did go back and look. She only had one congressional endorsement, and that was
Garcia.
our
I
friend,
can't believe I'm so disappointed at that.
yeah, our friend Robert Garcia, who must have really truly felt sorry for her, and
That was
just
a
did
pity
just
vote
a
or a pity
pity
endorsement.
endorsement because no one else did. And I think that just kind of shows her character. So nothing that she did on on Wednesday and Tuesday night surprised me because again, they have said all along that this is the kind of character that she is. That she's, she's petty, she's rude, she's, I don't like the word nasty necessarily for women, but that's basically what people have said about her. And it just went to show. So you can talk about the rig part about it, but I thought her entire like speech that she gave was absurd, and as well as that people were thinking it was fake, that tweet where she said the word rig. People were like, oh my God, this is not, she couldn't possibly say this. No, she did. So I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, no, it's just I'm done talking about her. Actually, it's like that was good.
We're so over her.
I'm like, I did want to like this was the like that was the first race I wanted to talk about, but after that, it was just like, okay, once she when she conceded the way she did, and when she gave her basically her campaign farewell speech, I was just like, okay, this is exactly who we've been saying she is. There's really nothing more to say. Just like, okay, you're out of a job, lady, and
Good
good luck
riddance.
to whatever it is you're gonna do. Yeah, good
Yeah,
riddance. And unfortunately, that seat is likely gonna go Republican. But again, she could have mitigated that, and she did not.
well, I honestly don't even know if she actually would have won re-election, because the people that I know in her district felt like she kind of abandoned them all along. So I don't even know if honestly she would have, and maybe that's why she ran. She kind of felt that coming.
Hmm.
And it is what it is. I mean, she didn't win. I hope she does what she needs to do.
Sorry to interrupt. So, as someone on here, Dana, is saying trashing a Democrat. Uh, she's a Democrat, yes, but this was a primary, so we are allowed to pick the folks we want to pick. And if you want to talk about trashing a Democrat, it was Katie Porter that did not concede gracefully. After the race is over, after everything is done, you're supposed to be gracious and bow out, and then just let the sun set on the campaign, and we all join hands and we're like, okay, we're going to go ahead and make sure that the Democrat wins. That's not what Katie Porter did. That's why she's being trashed, because she was not being gracious. She has not been gracious towards any Democrat, so there is no way I'm going to go ahead and reciprocate what she hasn't been giving. So just FYI, Dana.
Yeah, no. I could care less about trashing her, honestly. She
And it's not even trashing.
it's just truth telling. Yeah, it's
It's just what
definitely
she's done.
yeah, it's the truth, right? I mean, the woman said she sounded like a Republican, which was very, very like disheartening. Like, you're speaking as someone that the election was rigged because somebody spent money on the election. Ma'am, you had $23 million. She was not broke. She was not a Barbara Lee in this race who honestly could not raise money. And
Right.
she had $23 million that she spent. She didn't spend her money wisely. She chose not to attack Garvey. She could have went at Garvey to try to win that second seat. Instead, she chose to go at Adam when Adam wasn't the issue. If you watch the ads, I had to post them on Twitter because people were assuming that he, like, Adam was somehow like propping up Garvey, but he wasn't. He was basically setting Garvey up for the general election.
Right.
Did it bring more eyes to Garvey who couldn't afford ads? Absolutely. But that is not the first time that has happened, right? That is not something that's new. Remember, in Michigan, that happened in one of the primary races where they went after the Republican and said that he was, they were trying to get the MAGA person to be the person who won the race. We did the same thing here in Maryland, where the Governors Association were putting on ads trying to prop up Dan Cox, not propping him up in that way, but just saying he is the MAGA Republican, and that prompted him to win the seat in his primary. And this is gonna keep happening. You have to play politics. This is politics at the end of the day. You have to play chess. And honestly, I am never mad at a Democrat for playing the game.
Yeah.
You either get played or you play the game. And in this case, you know what? Adam played the game and he won, and he's gonna win in
Absolutely.
November easily, and that's less money we have to spend on that race. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because a race between him and Katie would have cost like another, $30 million. Now it could
Yep.
take him like $10 million to beat Garvey and just putting on ads. And Garvey's crazy. He's insane. So you can easily. He doesn't even know anything about politics. He's horrible. If you watch the debates, he's horrible. He doesn't
Yep.
know. He's just
He's
a
horrible. He's
he's like a Trump parakeet. He's just like regurgitates.
and he's spineless. He's spineless too. He can't stand it. He can't like support his convictions. He's kind of afraid to say how MAGA he is when he's just full MAGA, but he doesn't want to like admit it. It's just the weirdest thing. But just to bring it back because I know you wanted me to talk about Katie Porter and what she had said about the rigging. So I'm gonna actually read it so that way folks understand what she said when she was when she conceded. She said, "Thank you to everyone who supported our campaign and voted to shake up the status quo in Washington. Because of you, we had the establishment running scared, withstanding 3-1 in TV spending and an onslaught of billionaires spending millions to rig this election. To rig it. Like,
Yeah. And then she tried. Then she came back the next day or the next morning and said, "Well, I wasn't talking about it being rigged in that way. I was just basically saying that there was so much money spent." Ma'am, you use the word. You use the Trumpian word, and I've always thought that
yeah.
Katie Porter had like Republican tendencies, and she just kind of proved it to me. And so I don't know what's next in her career. Maybe she'll go back to teaching. I saw people saying, "Well, she should be, in the administration." I'm like, doing what?
Yeah,
Like, like
you
what?
saw how she went after Adam Schiff. She said the
Yeah,
election was
that's like
rigged.
not happening. I
It's
mean, listen, there is a place for her. She is very good at going at banks, so maybe there's a place for her somewhere. I don't
maybe
know if it's necessarily.
she can be a teller or something.
Not Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a role for everyone. She can go get hired and do something. She's still living on, campus housing in that nice
Hmm.
house, and she does have children to feed. So I hope she does land somewhere. I don't think she's gonna end up on TV. She doesn't really have the personality for that, but there's a job for her somewhere. So bless her heart, and I wish her well going forward. Next subject.
And yeah, next subject. So, not a teller. Yes, a teller. So the next subject on a more, and oh, by the way, side note, Joe Biden swept, did amazing. Like there was really nothing. Like he outperformed what Trump was doing in his primary because Trump did well too, but the gap wasn't as wide between Biden and whatever uncommitted, whatever other opponents he had in that primary compared to Trump and Haley. So, for all the talk of Biden as a weak candidate, it's not bearing out in the results. It's just
Nope, it surely isn't. Well, you know what it is? I think the media has definitely propped up we talked about this last week about polling, right? It was one of the things that I wanted to talk about. And unfortunately, the media has put so much stock into the polls that now when polls come out, even when they're in favor of Biden, people are still like skeptical of them because we don't know what to believe anymore. And I think the most of the polls last week had Biden up. You know what I mean? We are at that point where things are going to start to shift because I said this. I have a tweet on it that I had wrote back all the way back in like October, November. I said once March 5th comes, people are going to start to realize what's at stake and they're going to be able to see what this is all about. Like Trump is the candidate. I mean, at the end of the day, Trump is the candidate on the Republican side. MAGA Republicans are never going to leave him. The question is, what will never Trumpers do? What will independents do? And will people come to their senses? We know Democrats are going to vote for Joe Biden, but we need to see where those numbers land for the independents, because at the end of the day, independents are what swings polls back and forth, right? So
yep.
in one poll, you can have, 45% of the independents are saying that they want, Biden. Then the next week they say they want Trump. That is what swings polling. That it's not because otherwise we're polarized, right? Republicans are going to be for Republicans and Dems are going to be for Dems. But it's the people in the middle that Biden is trying to attract. And you saw what he did with Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley dropped out. And what was the first thing he did? He played politics correctly. He went and he sent a very nice note to Nikki Haley and to her followers and said, come along for the ride, right? We may have differences. There may be things that we don't necessarily agree on, but we should all want to hold up democracy. And I think that was an excellent message on his part because we need those people. I know we talk about like the 53% of, white women who were, for Donald Trump, and we kind of like put them in this box, but we need them. We need them to realize their freedoms are at stake between abortion rights and between IVF, and as well as just voting rights and things. These are not things that just impact, black and brown voters. Immigration doesn't just impact black. We are a very mixed society now. And so people need to understand that we do need these people to actually vote with us. And if we keep demeaning them, if we keep, listen, we can be honest, but I don't think demeaning them is actually going to help solve the problem. We need them on our side. And so how do we grow our coalition is really the question. And I think there's ways to do it. And we need to, of course, listen, I don't have to trust certain people, but if you can just show up and you can vote and you can help us
hold your nose and vote, basically.
Hold your nose and vote. Don't vote for the patriarchy, and just show up and do what you got to do to save democracy. We can be cool. In 4 years, you can decide to do whatever you want, but like for the remainder of the next 4.5 years, can you please just help us to keep Joe Biden in office so that we can actually keep our freedoms and be able to keep our rights, and we're not in an authoritarian government.
Absolutely. And Joe Biden did a great job of trying to get those folks into the fold with the State of the Union address this past Thursday. He delivered the speech of his life. It was it basically killed all the media, the media narrative around that he's old, the Republican narrative around his failing memory, that he's lacking energy, all this stuff. He just came out and he kept swinging, and he kept his foot on Republicans' neck the entire time. He would not let them breathe at all. He just kept going after them and after them. And like you said, Biden. So yes, so he did talk about us being at an important ministry, the fact that freedom and democracy are under assault, simultaneously abroad as well as within our own country's borders, and he presented that case, but he also paired that warning with the stuff he's already done. He had a message for everybody in that State of the Union. It wasn't for Democrats. It wasn't for Republicans. It was for folks who want to go to school. It was for folks who want to buy a house. It's for folks who want to put their kids, who want to give their kids a better future and put them in pre-K, or just there was something for everyone in that speech. Yeah. What did you think, Tiff?
Listen, I knew Joe Biden as soon as he walked into the room and he was just greeting every single person. I was like, oh, he's feeling good tonight. Yep. Like he's feeling good. He's in his zone. He loves talking. He's a people person, right? So he saw people he knew. The funny part was when he saw Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm sure people have seen the video where he's like. And it is the funniest thing ever because she's so insane, and she had her her MAGA gear on, and she's just such an embarrassment. So it just kind of embodied who Joe Biden is as he was walking through that room, and just he was taking selfie, like it was like 20 minutes just to get him to the dais. Like this is great. Like he's so funny. And he loved every second of it. And once he got up there, you could tell he was in a good mood. He knew listen, Joe Biden is a son of the Senate, okay? He was there for years. He knows Congress. He knows most of the people that are in Congress, and he loves the State of the Union. I mean, how could you not love the State of the Union? You were in Congress for 50 years. You were a vice president. You sat back there for 8 years. He had a little bit of a break, and he's been there all this time, for the last 4 years as president. And he came and he did his thing, and I was actually really proud of him. I mean, he kind of dispelled all of the negativity that was around. And listen, I've seen Joe Biden in person multiple times. Joe Biden is not the person that people perceive him to be. Okay, he is very live. When I went to that Virginia event, he was having a great time. His like, the old thing doesn't resonate with me. Listen, he walks very slowly. Secret Service is very much protective of him as an elderly man. They should be, right? But when it comes to talking, I have seen Joe Biden command a room full of college kids at Bowie State. He was there. Everyone was paying attention. Some dude was like heckling him. He was like, "Don't jump." Like, that's his favorite line, when somebody's on a balcony. And
Yep.
and that was less than 2 years ago. Then I saw him again when like I said, in Virginia. And he had all of those protesters, going at him, 12, 13 protesters going at him. And he once again was commanding that room. He stopped. He didn't like freak out. And that's what I love about him. He knows politics and he has the experience. The speech itself was a very Joe Biden speech. Like, from the moment he started, I'm like, oh God, Joe Biden wrote this speech. It was him. You can obviously, the speech writers, obviously proofed it and kind of probably added in a couple of things, but it was a very Joe Biden speech, right? He, from start to finish, it was him. And that's why it resonated well, because it was something that he wrote from his own perspective. It wasn't a highly political speech, in my opinion. Like you said, he kind of got to everyone, where everyone had an opportunity to be brought into the fold. Yes, it made partisans like us Democrats excited, because we like to see, as even Republicans will say, jacked up Joe. Like, that's their new thing. He was jacked up Joe. But guess what?
He was.
Democrats love us some jacked up Joe. We love Dark Brandon. That appeals to us. We like to see him on fire. And I know that, once again, Republicans are clueless to what Democrats like and want. He took his ginkgo that morning. He was feeling himself.
He had his ginkgo biloba. He did.
And Jill probably got it on a couple hours before, and he was charged and ready to go. Took a nap. He was ready. He was ready to go. And
he was good.
I was happy. Yeah, I was happy about it. And you know what? At the end of the day, that's what Democrats needed to see. Democrats needed to see Joe in where he's most comfortable, right? I mean, like I always say, you give a speech behind a podium at an event, you can't really hate Joe Biden. Like, he's there. You can kind of get the energy. But that was a TV thing. I think it was like 32 million people that watched on TV. God knows how many people watched.
Streamed it, yeah.
And so you figure I would say probably about 50 million people watched that, and that's just in the United States alone. And people saw what they needed to see. Now, did some people hate it? Sure, Republicans hated it. They hated every second of it, because
that's how you know it was a good job. That's how you know he did a good job.
That's how you know it was great. And there were some things that people got upset about, and I think he clarified them yesterday in his interview with Jonathan Capehart. But overall, I thought the speech, I know people were grading it on our space that night. Some people said A-. I give him an A. I mean, there was nothing that other than the illegal thing, that was fine. I mean, he was responding to Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was a pain in the ass at the end of the day. She's a pain in the ass, and he should have just ignored her. But I know why he didn't. I mean, she's there. So Jasmine Crockett was like, yeah, he actually was responding to her directly, because she was the one who said illegal, and then he responded back to her. And, of course, you couldn't see that on TV, so people kind of got a different impression of it.
I mean, I didn't care, to be honest. I mean, we're talking about a murderer. So, I mean, illegal is not the harshest of terms that I've heard. I mean, it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, it's an antiquated term. We don't use it anymore. We say undocumented now. But again, Joe Biden is an older dude, so sometimes the recall to use the most updated term may not be there. I mean, I look at my own parents. My dad still says maricon like all the time, and I'm just like, okay, dad, like you have a son that's a maricon. Like, can you
You
please?
cannot say that. Yeah, I know, and it's like that. That's so true, right? And that's what I said in my tweet too. I said, Joe, that's kind of the verbiage that that side of the house understands.
Right.
I don't personally like it. I made a tweet on it a while ago that I don't like that word. I especially hate the word alien. I think that word is, but sometimes we have slips, and I'm glad that he corrected himself and said I
Yeah.
should have said the word undocumented. That to me is growth. He wasn't apologizing to anyone about the using the word.
Yep.
He just said, listen, I should have used this word instead, and that was the word. This is the corrected word that I should have used, and I understand why people took offense to it. Okay, we move on,
Exactly.
and
And
that's okay. Because there's and I thought it was great too that Voto Latino, they came out strong for him and Kamala yesterday, and that proves, kind of where we are. Like people get upset with kind of these words that people use, and I get it. Like people, they're not, like I said, they're antiquated words. They shouldn't be used. But at the end of the day, if he didn't harm anyone, the person that killed Lakin, which he said Lincoln, and so did Marjorie Taylor Greene,
yeah.
it was a horrible situation and a tragic situation. She should not be dead right now. But
Right.
from what I understand, there was some kind of familial, kind of relationship. They kind of knew each other. And this person, whatever you want to call about their status, this person is a murderer. Whether
Right.
they were documented, undocumented, they're a murderer, and they should be in jail, and they should be prosecuted, you know, to the highest extent. That's where it is. But I find it like hypocritical that Republicans keep harping on this, but yet have no kind of, they don't care about gun violence, which I thought Fred Gutenberg um, said it correctly. He said, you guys are talking about a word, and you are saying that Joe Biden is apologizing for this. But guess what? You don't even care that my daughter, an American citizen, died in a
Right.
school by an American teenager. Like the hypocrisy is startling. And I don't think that people are, they are so obsessed with immigration and the immigration, yet they don't want to fix it. How many times we've talked about this for what, 6 or 7 weeks at this point about
Mm-hmm.
immigration? They don't want to fix the problem. So don't complain
Nope.
to
And
me
and that was
for
something else
losing
that
the
he that was another thing that he called out. So yeah, if let's go through the highlights of the State of the Union address. So those that was one of the highlights of the State of the Union address, where Joe Biden said, "Look, we had this border bill. It was a great border bill, and you guys didn't want to pass it. Just put it. Let's get it done." And the Republicans were booing and blah blah blah. And then what did he say to them? He's like, oh, he goes, oh, you didn't like that bill, huh? You didn't like that bill. And then he goes, he's like, but conservatives were praising it, and they're the ones that got together and wrote it basically, and you don't like that bill, huh? How interesting. And then he talks about all the things that that bill would have provided, and again, he painted them in the corner, and he kept doing that. He when he talked about January 6th, he called that the insurrectionists for threatening democracy, and he said that democracy has to be defended. And the one line that I really liked out of that State of the Union address when he talked about the insurrectionists specifically is he said, "You can't love your country only when you win." And I thought that was so simple and just like right to the heart of the matter. Um, he also talked about NATO. He mentioned how Finland had joined, and he introduced Sweden as the newest member to NATO. He talked about Roe being overturned. He basically went after he scolded the court justices. He scolded them and basically said, "You're gonna find out the um, how women vote in this country and how much political power they have."
part. That was I think that was my favorite part when he just looked them dead in their eyes and it's like, you know what, you have no idea what the power of women is. And it's true, right? I mean, we've every election since the Dobbs decision, we've won. Democrats have won when abortion is on the ballot. So these are things that, they open the can of worms. Republicans have used abortion for years and years and years
Yep.
as kind of a way to, to just kind of talk through politics. And now when it finally happens, they have no answer for this now. And rightfully so. You have taken away from people, women
Yep.
specifically, to do what has been gained. And then the courts are like, yeah, this is states' rights, right? These, like, there's a states' rights, and people are looking like, okay, it's states' rights, but we see how these states are kind of using this, right?
Right.
We see what they've done in Texas. We see, what they've done in Florida. It's actually gross. And we see the impact that it's actually having on women. I mean, Biden had Kate Cox there, who was, I would say, a victim of the fact that she couldn't get an abortion in her own state because of these laws. She actually had to leave her state, and granted, she is a privileged woman, so she was able to leave that state. Not everyone is that lucky. Some people end up
Right.
dying because they can't leave the state. She was able to leave the state, and she was able to get her procedure done. Her baby was not going to live regardless, but it didn't matter. There was also Brittany Watts that was there. She was a guest of two Congress people, Chantel Brown and, oh my God, I can't remember her name, from Ohio. Somebody remind me, but she was there as a guest of them. She was actually indicted. I mean, she not indicted. She was charged with the fact that her child was, she kept going back to the doctor, and then she ended up having a miscarriage in the toilet, and they tried to charge her with that, with murder. Like, I mean, come on, this is crazy. Like, this is where we are in this country. And then we also had women. They also
Milky
had the
Doke says Emilia Sykes.
no, it's an older one. I forget her name. She used to be the CBC chair, and she's gonna remember when I say that. And she ended up, and then they had the woman that was getting IVF in Alabama. She literally had to stop her treatments. Do you, as somebody who's gone through IVF, that is a lot of work to have to stop your treatments because of a decision that the courts make. I mean,
Yeah.
you're pumping drugs in you nonstop, and you're waiting for this transfer, and then boom, they're like, no, you can't have this. Like, what? What are we doing? Like, it is crazy. So I was happy that she was there. I was happy, when she was a black woman, I was happy she was there. They had a lot of good guests that were there. The girl from the sister of the child who the sister of a child who was murdered in Uvalde. She had like the orange hair and the black hair. I love what I'm gonna tell you what I loved about the White House. Everyone that they invited, that Joe Biden invited, the first lady invited to the State of the Union, they did a video on, and they told their story. And I thought that was amazing because there was so many people that she invited, and not everybody knows what their story is. So that was kind of a thing that made me like be like, okay, we are at a place where people are actually like telling their stories. And I keep saying this over and over for this campaign. Tell the stories. These are real people who are impacted by this, by gun violence and these decisions that all of these states are making and the Supreme Court is making. Tell their stories. Please keep on telling their stories.
And then the other thing to add to that is that, so you remember when Hillary lost in 2016, the narrative was, well, Hillary didn't talk about enough about the middle class. The middle class was forgotten in the Democratic message, blah, blah, blah. This State of the Union address, I mean, it went on for like 20 minutes, just nonstop middle class. It declared trickle down economic. Biden declared trickle down economics dead, which I thought was great. and then he talked about then he called the Republicans basically for wanting to pass a tax cut. I think it was like a $3 trillion dollar tax cut for corporations, and also trying to cut, was it Social Security? I believe it was.
Mhm.
And then they were all screaming, no, 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 lies, lies, lies. And then he's like, oh, so you don't want to do it anymore? Okay, well, that's good to hear
I
because
love
I
that.
have the bill.
I love how he responds to
Yeah,
them.
the
I love
call-in
how he like.
response is great, and it's unintentional
You ha-
call-in
did you
response.
see? Did you see the Lincoln? I know people don't like the Lincoln Project, but the Lincoln Project has a video where they do all of his responses to Republicans. All of his his quibbles back with them. They have this video. It's amazing, and it's so funny to watch his they're like it because sorry, this is his thing. He's like, what, who, when, like that. Like he's like really interactive with the crowd, like a comedian. He's like real into it, and he's just kind of like listening to what they're saying, and then he responds, and then people are just like, oh, and he does it with he has Joe Biden has a really good like sense of humor, so that helps too. He can be very serious. He can like kind of project his voice, or he can just kind of just kind of be humorous, and that's what he does. He kind of like treats them like they're clowns. He just kind of laughs at them, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah, I mean, the whole time he did that, I thought those were his strongest moments when he was kind of going off script and kind of trolling the Republicans, and the MAGA Republicans, for whatever reason, kept falling into it. They just kept bait, and every time he would come out on top. So I thought it was a great testament to his to how energetic he is and how with it he is, because I mean he had control of that room the entire time. And Republican, so two folks were pissed, right? And that's how I know it was a great job. So it was the degenerate MAGA folks that were out there who were not happy, and then it's the degenerate left fringe folks who were like, "Oh, no, no person is illegal." No. I'm like, okay, that's what you got from the whole State of the Union address,
That's it.
is that
Yeah.
one word. That's it. It's just like, okay, he called a murderer a an illegal. Like that's your takeaway. And
Yeah,
like,
not anything else, but that's the one thing that you got out of it, and he was jacked up. That was the thing that they got out of it. I
yeah,
mean, they were like a couple of them left. I mean, they were sitting there on. You watched it. They were sitting. My husband was watching with me, and Phil does not like politics. Or I wouldn't say he doesn't like it. He just doesn't care. He just is not into it. Right? It's not his thing. But he had to come home, and he tried to play like fashion critic
uh-huh,
while we were sitting there watching. He was driving me crazy because I'm like, dude, I'm trying to watch this. But
uh-huh.
he comes, he's like at the TV. He's like, he looks at Kamala. He's like, I like the way her shirt is laying. He's like, I like Mike Johnson's suit. He's like, he like Joe Biden's cufflinks. He's like his like the way his shirt and his suit are laying is great. I'm like, dude, I'm trying to listen. Okay? He's going on and on and on, and he's like, why is everyone on that side so miserable? I'm like, they don't like dragons. He's like, what's up with this guy's face? Why does he keep rolling his eyes like this? I'm like, listen, he's a hater. Like I literally was doing commentary for him while I was trying to listen, and I was like, Lord have mercy. But I was happy that he was into it, and I saw a lot of people saying that too, right? They said, my kids watched it with me, my husband watched it. He's not into politics, and he was watching. So I think a lot of people were curious to kind of see what Joe Biden was going to bring to the table. And once they started watching it, it wasn't boring. Like he wasn't boring at all. So they kept watching it. And that's a good thing, right? I mean, for an old man who's 81 years old to keep the attention of youngins, including myself, I don't know what I have, but I very rarely can keep my attention on anything. And I was into it. I mean, Phil was into it, and we enjoyed the moment, and I'm looking forward to next year, and I hope people understand what's at stake in this election. And I do want to talk about that because I feel like people are not understanding what the difference is between an authoritarian and a democracy. Like they don't understand what it means to be in authoritarianism. And what we saw on display with Joe Biden and him being able, and even with all these protesters and things, Those things will not happen in an authoritarian society. Okay, where
Yep.
you're not going to get the protest in front of Joe Biden and call him a dictator in an authoritarian society, in an authoritarian government. I mean, Trump would have had that person locked up. Like these are the things that people are not recognizing. And yeah, I know there's some criticism, people saying, messaging, and we shouldn't be talking about democracy. No, democracy is the system. It is, for of the people, for the people, by the people. We vote for our democracy. And if we are willing to give that up and put that in the hands of Trump, who will try to, yeah, we would still be in a pseudo democracy, but Trump will be running all of the agencies. He would be prosecuting people that he hates. He will destroy our immigration system. I told you last week, I read that article where he was saying that he wants to give up birthright citizenship. He wants to do all of these things that a dictator would do. And I don't believe that we would be able to vote again in 2028. I believe that he would
You know what's so frustrating about this for me,
yeah.
and for me, it's just like we've already been through one term of Donald Trump.
Right.
We saw that he how he handled a once in a century pandemic. Well, like that alone was disqualifying. He did not win re-election, and what did he do? He tried to cling on to power. He tried to deploy all his little minions to forge documents to stay in power or delay the peaceful transfer of power. Then, during the transition, he did not cooperate with Joe Biden. He made the transition as difficult as possible, which hasn't happened before. I mean, how many times do folks have to be reminded that, yo, this is not a hypothetical anymore. This isn't 2016 where like we're guessing that this is what's going to happen because that's what he's telling us is going to happen. We've actually seen it play out now. We've actually seen rights rolled back now. We've actually seen that the Republican Party is still on their official platform, still wants to keep marriage between a man and a woman. That has not changed. That is part of their party platform going into 2024. They're telling you what they're going to do. We've already seen what they wanted to do in 2016 to 2020. We saw it play out. We saw that they wanted to take away the Affordable Care Act. Luckily for John McCain, like one of his legacies will be this thing. Like that's
Exactly.
one of his legacies, and I don't know what else needs to happen. So
Yeah,
so
I
that's
mean,
that's why I'm frustrated. I'm just like
yeah,
at
me
this
too. I
at
am
this point,
too.
like even like on Twitter, when I see like and I keep calling them, I'll call them degenerates all day long. The lefty degenerates, like when they are talking about protesting Joe Biden over what's happening in Gaza, I'm just like, what? Where is the energy to protest Donald Trump? They protested Joe Biden. Trump was in Georgia, a bunch of people there, and Trump is like giving the tickets out to anybody who will show up. He doesn't care. I can guarantee you that the vetting process to get into a Trump event is definitely a lot less strict than it is to get into a Biden event. And there are no protesters there. And I posed a question. I think it was this morning or last night. I'm like, hey, to all the folks that have watermelons in their emoji, why are you not at the Trump rally protesting him? Because again, this is a right wing authoritarian who agrees with the right wing authoritarian in Israel. Like he would basically allow Bibi to do whatever it is he wants to do. As of what was it, 3 days ago, Trump said that he would allow Israel to finish the job. Is what he said,
He's
and
crazy.
the guy is completely crazy. So where is the protest for that? The protest just seems to be coming in the direction of Democrats and Democrats who aren't even in power, like Hillary Clinton. People are protesting Hillary Clinton when she's just giving speeches. So I'm just like, it doesn't make any sense to me. It just seems like we're letting the right wing authoritarian who's running to get back into the White House, we're letting him fly. Not we, but those folks are letting him fly under the radar. And it's just
Right.
such a point of
But
frustration.
if you hate BB like I hate BB, then why would you want Donald Trump back? They're literally the same. They're the same person. They're both narcissists.
Yep.
They both have the same kind of ideology. So you hate, if you claim to hate Israel and their government, then why would you want the same thing to happen in this government? Like that doesn't make any sense to me. Not only that, like we've seen, like you said, with the January 6th stuff, Trump has been indicted for the things that he's done. They had fake electors. They were trying to steal the election. This is not something that we are not aware of. Trump will be put on trial for this at some point. I don't know when that will be. But this man is you are you really willing to put your faith in this man again after COVID? Like what the hell is wrong with people?
Like we weren't wrestling and body slamming each other over toilet paper because
Yeah,
this
4
man did
years ago,
not.
literally at this time, as I think everything shut down. What was it, like March 11th or something? And of that year, I remember I will never forget being in. I was at happy hour and I'm watching the TVs behind us, me and my coworkers, and we're like, everything is shutting down. The NBA shut down. All of the national, like the hockey league shut down.
Mhm.
Like all of these things were shutting down. Schools were shutting down. States were shutting down. We're like, oh shit. And by the next week, like you said, there was no toilet paper. People didn't know what to do. Couldn't leave their cells. The cases
No
just started.
sanitizer,
Yeah,
nothing like.
people, like the cases just started going on. People were dying. I mean, like it's like almost like people just don't remember that time, but they better start remembering it. It was real, and people's loved ones are dead, and he was telling people to drink bleach and take horse whatever that ivermectin crap. Like,
Yeah.
like this is where we were, and we
And
couldn't
people
even
died
leave our
from the medical advice that he was dispensing. I don't mean to laugh, but I mean
yeah.
that's what happened. Like it's just so ridiculous to me. And you know what? It's so okay. Like I get you're not going to win people over by saying, "Oh, look how dangerous Donald Trump is. Don't vote for that because he's so dangerous." But when you look at the other side and you have Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, we talk about the conflict between Israel and Gaza, between Israel and Hamas. Um, she has called for a ceasefire. Oh, sorry, aren't good with that. Okay, we've provided aid. Like they're like, oh well, it's not enough. It's only for 38,000 people. It's like, oh, okay, well that's just the first round. You can't fit like what is it, 2 million? 2 million meals in one plane. Like there's gonna you have to have several rounds. Um, we have the Biden infrastructure bill. We have a recession that never happened that was supposed to be imminent. Even the other top seven economies in the world, they are going through a recession now because they didn't get that soft landing. We are the envy of the damn world because we are coming in for a soft landing. Joe Biden signed the Inflation Reduction Act. What happened? Inflation has gone down. Jobs have gone up. Unemployment has gone down. Consumer confidence, like there are all these wins under his belt. And so even if this were a normal Republican, a law-abiding Republican with zero indictments, zero impeachments, zero sexual assault stuff happening, like Joe Biden is still that dude to vote for. So, I mean, I think it's important to balance both, but I hate it when you're like, okay, well, Trump is really, really bad. And they're like, well, it's not enough to say that. It's just like, okay, are you not paying attention to what's on the other side? Like,
We have receipts upon receipts on things that Biden has done. I mean, the Biden, I don't even have to tell you what Biden's receipts are because he told y'all at the State of the Union
yep,
all his receipts. I mean, he ran down all of the things that he did. And I think last week we were talking about, the fees, like fees that he was
the junk
reducing.
fees. Yeah.
Yeah, I was happy he kind of talked about, the fees for the late fees. I mean, that makes a difference to some people, right? You have to pay your bills late, $32 starts adding up. I mean, these things are things that are
Shoot,
kitchen
I mean,
sink.
I'd rather keep $30 a month than, or even a year than have it to give it to a credit card.
Right.
It's not like I got it like that to just donate
Exactly.
money to a credit card
Yeah,
company.
no, of course. Yeah, no, for sure. And people act like inflation is like somebody's gonna come. It's like inflation is happening in every country in this in this world, okay? We are not the only people who have inflation. We actually are the ones who have dealt with it the best in the world. And this is where we are. Like, I don't understand why people just can't see it, but it's not that they don't want to see it. They just don't want to believe it. They're Trumpers, or they're just, and honestly, I can't deal with it. Yes, groceries are definitely high, but there's reasons why groceries are high. There is situation. The war in Ukraine does not help with groceries, okay? It honestly doesn't. And we also have to remember that companies these corporations are gouging the hell out of us.
Yep.
Like, Biden doesn't control the prices of, a Procter Gamble. Like this is not something that he controls. He doesn't control General Mills, the price of cereal. Like, these are things that are controlled by the corporations. And you know what? They need to start paying their freaking fair share. That's what they're pissed about. Because
Yep.
there is so many corporations that are doing well, and they're jacking the damn prices up on us. So there needs to be some better regulation around that. Control that, Congress. But they
Can
don't
you
do shit.
imagine? Can you imagine what would have happened if we had the Build Back Better plan? If that
Oh my
had
God.
if that
It
had
was
passed?
amazing. I think about, okay, from a personal standpoint, like my mom, my grandmother lives with my mom now. That Joe Biden talked about it at the State of the Union, elder care. My mom would have benefited from that. I mean, my grandmother, she's living in her house. She has the amount of time she has to take off of work to take her to the doctor. Like, it is a lot of work to take care of our elderly.
Hmm.
And having the ability to have home health care is a big deal. She had to go through so many hoops to be able to get a home health care worker when my grandmother got sick. I mean, it was a nightmare. So if we can, that also creates jobs. There is so many things that could have been handled through that Build Back Better plan, not to mention the child tax credit. I mean, there's so many things that were in that bill that would have helped. And instead, we are here. F you to Joe Manchin, who basically killed that. I don't understand why people just don't realize the impacts that Congress has. Like, Joe Biden could say, I think Phil asked me this question. He said, of all the things that Joe Biden is saying in this speech, like, how many of the things are really going to happen? I said, well, it depends on Congress. I mean,
Right.
a lot of these things have to go through Congress. And unfortunately, we only have 51 seats in the Senate, and Republicans are actually in control of the House of Representatives. We
Exactly.
need to we need to get back our House and put it in them hands, and we need more senators to go around that filibuster. That is the only thing that is going to change things in this country. And unfortunately, we have to depend on voters in specific states to do this. And I hope that people in Texas, in Florida, in Michigan, and Wisconsin and Arizona,
Pennsylvania, Virginia,
Pennsylvania, yeah, and all these, and Georgia. Well, Georgia's
New
not in Pennsylvania,
Mexico. Yeah.
thank goodness. But I hope these people realize, like, imagine. I mean, it is not impossible that Republicans could get a trifecta if they win back the House, win back the
Yep.
presidency, and then win the Senate. We would be screwed. Not only screwed for legislation purposes, but screwed with the Supreme Court if they get the Senate back. I need people to really, I mean, the Supreme Court, if they get the Senate back, like, I need people to understand the impacts of what that means to our lives. These are things that matter to our lives. Are you really willing to give that back to Republicans? Because I am not. I am definitely not willing to do that. But why are you? I hope people think about that.
Yep.
But that's all I got. I don't know.
Yeah, that's all I got to. Oh, one more thing, I guess. One more thing. We can talk about the Republican response and how SNL clowned
Oh
the
my
home bill.
God.
That was
Katie Britt. Whoa, Katie
yeah.
Britt.
Oh, by the
Katie.
way, before we get into that, the most recent news on that is that she admits that the story she used about the woman who was S.A.'d, it didn't happen. The way she said it did.
Yeah, it didn't happen. I mean, she was a
Hmm.
lot. She was lying.
Yeah,
I
she was
love
lying.
Scarlett. I love Scarlett Johansson's rendition of her yesterday. I thought she was amazing. She was everything. she was the perfect person to play it too. And there were so many good lines in that, but the mixing of the tea to in reference to Get Out was perfection. Was
Yep.
perfection. I loved it. And I was happy. You know what? Listen, I for me, I hope that white women see how other white women portray them, right? I mean, this woman was in a kitchen for
She was Sally Struthers. It reminded me of Sally Struthers
it
asking
was
for
giving
money with that
Stepford Wife, like it was just giving like career vibes. And she, the way she was talking, like it was
almost
like
crying.
it was
Yeah.
a performance for the patriarchy. And I think that a lot of women, especially white women, realized what she was doing. And I hope that they feel like they are being mocked because that is what she was doing. She was mocking them. And SNL mocked her in the way that she spoke because it was disrespectful. Like I've seen many white women saying this, and I hope that they see how Republican women think. And this woman just kind of came out. I think in the past, Sarah Sanders Huckabee did one a couple of years ago, but this one took the goddamn. I think she did it last year. This
And
one took
Don't forget the Marco Rubio one with the
the
glass
Marco
of
Rubio,
the bottle of
Bobby
water.
Jindal. I mean, there's been some really bad ones, but it was the inflection in her voice and the
Yeah.
performative way she was doing it, and just like the crying, and it was just so Karenish, and it was just so horrible. And you know what? Listen, at the end of the day, I think white women needed to see that. I think they needed to see how this woman was
Phony.
portraying them,
Phony.
and how phony it was. And she's willing to, take away your rights, and she's willing to do all of this in the name of what? In the name of republicanism, in the name of Donald Trump. First of all, I didn't even know this woman existed. I had no
I
idea who the
didn't
second
either.
senator I had no idea who the second senator was of Alabama until when people were saying she's a senator. I mean, I'm like, is she a state senator? Like, I didn't even know this woman was in the Senate. And I love the Senate. She didn't
Yep.
even matter to me because I don't really
I
care about.
didn't. I
I
when
thought
she
so too. I was like,
I was
she's
like,
a.
is that a state senator? I was
I
like, who's
googled it.
that?
I googled it. I was like, oh, she's a real senator
Yeah,
in
I
Alabama.
felt stupid because I was like, oh, she's a real U.S. senator. Who knew?
It was weird. I don't know. The whole vibe was just off. But I just hope that people realize what it was and what it means. And I don't know. It's just between her and Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think those were the two losers of the State of the Union, to be
Yep.
honest.
Yep. Marjorie Taylor Greene got her ass handed to her. So did Republicans. I mean, and then the not Donald Trump, but it was the predecessor. Is the predecessor? I think he kept calling him. But that was awesome. Anything you're looking anything you're looking forward to this week?
Hopefully, we get a decision on this foolishness.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully, because he said 2 weeks, so hopefully we'll get a decision on that. But honestly, I just hope it's quiet. I'm tired. I'm really tired.
Me too. Me too. I hope it's quiet too. I'm happy with the primary, the way it's panning out, the with Super Tuesday. I was happy with the State of the Union address, really happy about it. So hopefully this week is a quiet week.
I
We'll
think
see.
we do have some primaries. I think Georgia's on Tuesday, so I mean it's like a waste. It's just give us the electoral votes, and I mean sorry,
Yeah,
the,
exactly.
the delegate
The
votes, and just
delegates and call it a day.
yeah, no one's gonna care about that. So I just want it to be quiet. I don't know what else. There's not really much out there that we're pending. So I think it'll be very hopefully fingers crossed, somewhat quiet, and we can just kind of have a week. We deserve a quiet week at this point, I think.
We do. I think so too.
Hmm?
All right.
Bye.
Well, then that's it. We will be back. You're good for next week.
I am good for next week
Uh,
as of right now. Actually, next week. Oh, next week is St. Patty's Day. We can have a St. Patty's Day
okay,
special.
let's do that. I don't wear green though on
We
St.
can bring our green drinks.
Okay, we'll do that. That
We'll bring our green drinks and wear green
sounds
so we can
good.
we'll be in spirit. Sounds good. All right. Well,
All
have a
right,
good rest of
Tiff.
the week. Talk
Thank
to you
you. Have
later.
a great week. Thanks everyone for being in the live. Thanks for liking the live. Make sure you follow us. Have a good night, everyone.